I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes! Let the buzz begin. It's right here, the best after show. I mean, come on, God friended me. You're right here with your favorite Afro-Latina for all things God friended me. And of course, I got now two of my besties on the show tonight. Of course, Mina, who talks all things God, will be right here. And of course, the Myles Finer, Brandon Micheal Hall, is with us today.
What? What's happening? Finally.
Come on now. Look.
You're getting to make him.
Right? The series had to end for us to get you here. You're a busy man. It's hard being number one on the call sheet. Okay?
I gotta secure these bags.
Hello?
I gotta secure the bags.
Thank you so much for joining us for All Things God Friended Me. We're gonna get right into it because there's so much to pack in for this 2-hour season finale, series finale. I just want to go ahead and just get started and ask you guys, what was your just reaction to this series finale? And then, I'll tell you guys what I think.
I felt like there was definitely a callback to the earlier seasons in terms of like the emotional effect, especially at the end of the first part of the season finale with the reconciliation with Alphonse and his son, and just the whole like father-son, grandson dynamic I thought was really beautiful because oftentimes there is generational trauma. And we don't want to repeat the same cycles when it comes to parenting and love. So I really, really loved that. And I loved how Myles got involved with that. It was really like refreshing to see that type of reconciliation.
Whew. I mean, honestly, the whole time I was watching, I was like, is this the ending they wanted? Is this the real ending? Is this I was on pins and needles, and I'm such an actor because I was watching the show like, is this re-editing? Is this, because I know that, for those who didn't know, New York, God Friended Me was one of like the last productions that was still being able to shoot all the way up until the city really, really got shut down because of the pandemic. So a lot of shows, including like Empire, Taraji didn't even know how Empire was going to end. So Brandon, did you know how the show was going to end? And if so,
I'll be honest,
find out like the rest of us?
I didn't know that we were going to end until like a couple of weeks ago. So I didn't know how it was all going to play out. Now, when it comes to me being on the mountaintop, I heard about that at one point, but I didn't know if it was going to like all tie together. But until we found out that we weren't coming back for season 3, it just made sense. And funny enough, that last scene on the mountaintop, we shot first season. We shot during the pilot. It was supposed to be a part of the pilot, the ending of the pilot. And we shot that in Utah, which was fun. We flew to Utah for 2 days and shot that. But it just made sense when Brian and Steven put it at the very end. It just made complete sense.
Was it originally intended for the end, or do you think the mountain scene was supposed to be part of another request suggestion?
I honestly think that the mountaintop was supposed to be the ending scene. It was supposed to be the ending of the pilot. They just knew it was going to be the clip somewhere, but just didn't know where. Now we finished 3 days before, like the city shut us down 3 days before we were supposed to finish the second season. So I'm not so sure what would have happened in those 3 days. What we would have like come up with to put for the ending. But what Brian and Steven were able to do with the time that we've had off, we had to ADR a lot of those lines on our phones, send those in. Everyone in production just like made it look and sound flawless. So,
see what I'm saying? I was literally, usually I watch God Friended Me with Mina. We get on FaceTime and watch it together because it's quarantine. So I want to feel like we're watching it together. But tonight, since it was so special, I like came over to my friend's house and we all watched, like not all of us, but just her and her husband, right? We watched it together. And I literally was sitting there like, oh my God, I think they ADR'd this. I think they recorded this because it's just, that's the thing when you love a show like this. I love God Friended Me so much, and I watch it so intensely that you see the flow of the show and the writers and just their choices. And there were things that were like a little different than what you guys normally do. And I was like, this seems like, so I had so many questions, like the Miguel scene on the subway, like, those flashbacks were a little long. I was like, ooh, they kind of added that.
We had to fill them. We had to fill them. Because they were definitely not in the original script. Like to go back and go through everyone from first season and use all those clips, they were not. And funny, Brian even expressed to me that the scene at the very end where I'm at the church, that's actually a scene with me and Joe. They have this really cool Frankenstein thing that they can do in the editing room, where they can take someone out. And so they use this old scene of me when I was wearing the same coat, same jacket, everything. They like searched through and found it, and it worked perfectly. So it was just a lot of piecing together. I'm sorry, someone wants to say hey.
It's okay.
This is a little girl. She's over here growling. She wanted to say hello. But it was a lot of piecing together. And so when it all came, like when I was able to see it, I saw the first cut, and then when I saw this cut, it just all made sense. It made sense. I mean, I cried the entire time because it's a complete look over of all the lives that we've been able to touch. And what's magical is that when you're able to work on such a powerful piece like this, not only are you touching people's lives that come on the show and work with you, but living in New York, you're constantly out. We were constantly out on location. So when the traction of the show started to pick up, other people would come up and say, this show, did this for me, or this happened for my family, and we get to watch it together with my family and stuff like that. So it's a beautiful experience and a great feeling to know that we were changing people's lives with the show that we were just literally having fun. We were just having fun doing. But that radiates, so it's nice.
Yeah, the show permeates.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Were there any personal friend requests on the show that was in the script that hit you on a very different level than the others? Like any of them that stood out to you in your life personally?
Yes, it would have to be, give me one quick second, Cleo, you gotta bounce back. It would have to be, I mean, of course, Allie's, because I've dealt with cancer in my family numerous of times. So that was a deep, deep dig into my heart. And what else use? Yeah. When Ruby came through and played the young lady who passed away.
Yeah.
Her name was. That one was hard because it was the first time we lost somebody. Like that was the first time we came out of the end of having a friend suggestion, and it wasn't successful. So it was interesting reading that script, being like, okay, so what happens next? Like how I thought the God account is always supposed to work, but obviously it didn't in her situation. She restored her faith, but we still lost her. So that was hard. That was a very hard a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, super, super hard. I just want to just go over these final 2 episodes and the journey that we went on tonight. We last week, we found out that Corey was trying to sabotage the God account, and here we are. We're finding out just the generational, and that really his dad was a CIA agent, and you had guest star Lonnie from This Is Us, and
such a good acting, so fun. I have a video of us racing out in the field. He's such a cool cat. I like him a lot.
I mean, isn't it amazing to see children, well, not children, but young people, I like to call them young people who are like so mature, and so like, what is it working with, younger actors? And again, like, how does it feel to be like, again, there's a tall order as a number 1 on the call sheet to lead by example. So could you express some of that for you of what it was like to lead the charge for a show like this?
Oh man. Well, I had a really what's the best word to say? I had I feel like a leg up a little bit because I came from the mayor. And so come from the mayor where, you're being groomed by Yvette Nicole Brown. You're just like, you're destined to make sure
love her.
Yeah, I love her to death. And she made sure that I was prepared for God Friended Me, so with every lesson that she taught me, being generous on set, staying true and honest, looking out for everyone who was there, showing up prepared, showing up ready. Those were the things that I knew that I just had to come in with. Everything else follows, being a leader. Also, we were talking about this earlier when we were all on Zoom together, is that being a leader is you have to be a follower. You have to learn how to follow. So there's no way I would have been able to do that show successfully if it wasn't for Joe, Javicia, and Surge, and Violet, and Erica. because they also held me up on those days where I just could not. You working 13, 14, 15 hours a day, traveling to 6 different sets. It's a lot, you know? But when you have a family that is surrounding you, that is supportive, that also shows up and also cares, it makes your job so much easier, and it motivates me. You know, motivates me to keep going. And to work with younger actors, that's a blessing, because I started acting when I was 16, but I was in school, you know, so I wasn't 10 years old in front of a camera doing a network television show, you know? So not only am I, you know, teaching them in a way, you know, there's etiquette on set, there's things that you do, you always got to make sure, we always running lines. I always run lines with everyone who comes on set. That's just a constant thing. If we can't stay in the work, then what are we doing, you know? But also just having fun, having as much as fun as possible on set. That's why people wanted to keep coming back. Hence why you see a lot of characters coming back on the show. But to work with young actors who are driven and passionate about the work that they do, I learn a lot, because as adults, I feel like that childlike creativity can sometimes fly away from us with the bog down of everything else that happens. But when you see a 10-year-old or 11, 12 come on set, and they're just wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to, you know, do everything under the sun, it makes you want to do it too. It's like, oh snap, I'm playing. I'm literally playing today. I'm doing a play, you know? It's called a play for a reason. And so it's fun. It's always a learning process. There's always a learning process, no matter the age, no matter who it is on set. I always try to find something that I can learn from them, and it usually works.
That's really awesome. Ivan, who's a big fan, who's always on the live chat with us every week, says he loves the mayor, to tell you he loves the mayor. And he's such a fan of Myles and Cara. See, listen, Mina and I were texting each other during the show, like, Cara's getting on my nerves. Like, he is just every week, ever since you guys broke up, like, I've been over her. Like,
he was a great guy.
No, I'm over the fact that she couldn't be a little more transparent and clear. And even in this episode, like, her hesitation to keep it real, like, just her whole process and how she thinks when it came to you in this relationship was very frustrating as a woman. Like, I'm like, girl, you need to get it together.
And I ask, is it true though? Have you found yourself in those same situations where you want to tell the truth, but the opportunity just hasn't presented itself? Or you can find the opportunity to present itself, you just don't take the liberty to do it?
It's so funny because after last week's episode of God Friended Me, Franceli and I had this like heart-to-heart chat about a private conversation in my life, and how I was like, you know what, some things I think are better left unsaid, because being too transparent is a bad thing. And I don't know if I can be so direct with someone if it hurts their feelings to that degree. I don't know if they can handle it. And Franceli was like, you mean you're being a Kara right now? I was like, yeah, actually, I think I can empathize a little more. Like, after the trash talking of Kara, the character, I'm like, I'm kind of being like Kara. I think
I'm the
petty especially as women, to be so direct when we're taught to kind of sugarcoat things and spare people's feelings, as opposed to presenting the truth in a very direct, harsh way. So I can relate to it on that level. The only thing about, like, specifically this week that really frustrated me was that I just feel like Kara in the last 2 episodes was kind of stringing you along when she found out that her family was leaving her. And that's the part that didn't resonate well with me. Like, now you're not going to tell Myles how you feel because you're lonely and you're going through something, and he's a good friend. But then I'm like, after I found out at the very end that you guys like are an item now, then I was like, well, maybe they like work through all of that, and like, this is kind of cute. But there was a very long period of time where it was like, season 1, obsessed with Kara, loved her so much. Season 2, couldn't stand her.
Over it. Over her. Yeah. Do you hear me?
You're completely over it?
I do want to ask you a question too about like set dressing. I noticed something today. I feel like God Friended Me was such a, like, it was like the Matrix, you know, like there's this algorithm and this coding, and, you know, I kudos to the fact that Rakesh rebuilt the entire code. Like, shout outs to the real MVP for saving the account. And so I noticed that a poster of the movie The Matrix was on the episode. And I was like, oh, was that intentional? Because here's the thing, you guys could have picked any movie poster, But the Matrix, there's word on the street that the Matrix is based on the Bible. It was written by an African American woman. A lot of people don't know that. The idea was stolen from her. She actually sued them and got paid bank.
Really?
Okay, so yes, but she's a believer and she wrote the Matrix based on the Bible. And so yeah, I was like, ooh, God friended me, the Matrix. I mean, a lot of people don't know that,
Here's
but
the
you know, I
one.
caught it.
Myles was the one, and Neo was a prophet.
Oh,
So
see, that's why. See, Brandon, that's why you came on the show the last day. See, God knew. So I don't know if the set dresser knew it, but God knew it.
True. I know that in I think it was in first season, Rakesh says that his like fondness of the Matrix, but it's always been in his office in Identity Seal. And I had the same question on first season when I went into Identity Seal and saw it. I was just like, Neo, the one,
Yeah.
Identity Seal, numbers. I wonder. Don't know.
That's
But
great.
I think that was definitely something to pick up on. I'm sorry, I just have to take it outside real quick.
No, it's okay. I'm telling you, people are going crazy on the chat. They're so excited. Yeah. Can you ask Brandon if he wants to know who's behind the God account and if he's ready for the polarizing reaction to this ambiguous ending?
Do I want to know who's behind the God account? Am I ready?
Yes.
I'll tell you what. I know who's behind the God account. The question is, are y'all ready to know?
Yes, we are ready. We've been dying.
I've been dying to know
Don't tease us anymore.
Behind the God account.
Not saying, because that's not the purpose of the show. The purpose of the show is it doesn't matter who's behind it, as long as you do good.
It doesn't matter, but it doesn't hurt.
She's like, I don't care, just tell me.
But someone asked me,
what do you think? Who do you think?
The Instagram DMs, who is she? Is she referring to God?
Right.
At the very end of the
question. Is it God? Is it my mom? Who could it be? Honestly, that one surprised me when we had first shot it, because I was like, oh yes, God's a woman. Yeah, that's the way it should be. Come on, let's keep going with this. And then as the season continued, and the thing about my mom started going, and then when that got edited into this, I was like, I wonder if it's my mom who's been behind the God account the whole time, just trying to direct me back to my path,
Right.
But I don't know if it was her. Maybe.
I mean, I do feel like the God account has always been trying to restore Myles's faith.
Yes.
This whole time. That's what it's been about from the beginning, and it's been such a beautiful journey. And I really loved that montage of the end of those last clips of like the seeds that the God account had been planting about faith, with losing that friend's suggestion, with Javicia saying, Ali saying what she said to you about restoring your faith, and then your atheist hero saying maybe it is God, and just these.
It's like it's one word, account.
One word, right? What if the difference between God and God account is just one word, account? Which is really powerful, because again, isn't that what it is in real life, that there are people that come into our lives and they sow seeds, and then someone else comes and waters it, and sooner or later you see this beautiful garden of all these things that have come into your life as a just this variety show of all the beautiful things you've been able to sprout. So I really just love the nuggets, and I was so happy to see the podcast come back, because that's one of the things every time there was an episode that there wasn't a podcast, we would complain. I'd be like, where's the podcast? Yes. Like my favorite part, like when the revelation at the end and just that wrapping up, it's one of the best parts of the show. And so whenever it wasn't incorporated, I had an attitude.
I love those I love those podcasts, because like I come from a theater background, and so it always reminded me of doing like a soliloquy in Shakespeare or something, just like a nice aside. And usually, and like you said, it just wraps up the entire episode. And for me, that's also nice, because you doing an episode and you cross into another episode, but when you have that moment of just pause to take a minute of like, actually, what did we just do here before moving on forward? It's the best feeling. It's the best feeling because it keeps you intact, keeps you connected.
And I love the two themes of tonight's episodes. Forgiveness is, I feel like, the theme of you know, the first one, and then
Yeah.
the wrap up is really about, you know, faith, because that's what Ali gave him. And honestly, it was as a minister in training, it was so amazing to see a scripture that I actually know by heart. I was like, Jeremiah 29:11. I know this one, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord. I was shouting. I was like, ooh, I know this one. So it was just really, really good. And I one of the things that I do love about this show is that it incorporates everyone's voice, you know,
Yeah.
that it's not alienating to anyone, that you could be a believer or an atheist or just someone who's seeking hope and refuge. And the show just speaks to the heart of who I believe God really is, which is love, you know?
Which
I
makes that show so unique. And you know, it's just gonna be sad not to be able to have those types of experiences, especially outside of the church, you know, 8 p.m.
Mhm.
at home with your family,
Right,
every Sunday, you know,
right.
to have those moments of connection. It's gonna be a little sad.
Mm.
I'm
Mina,
sorry.
you were gonna,
What's that?
yeah,
Yeah, I
Mina,
was
you were
gonna
saying,
say one thing I loved, and I know this is something that worked out well because of editing, was all of the flashbacks of the people that you've helped in the past. But I
Yeah.
do want to revisit that because there was an episode last week that kind of highlighted that even when you're helping someone through the God account, you don't know what damage you could have unintentionally done,
Mm,
even while trying to have good intentions to help people. What
yeah.
do you think about the negative aspects of your work with the God account? Or I should say Miles's work with
Yeah.
the God account.
Um, you know, I think it goes back to the conversation we were just having about being honest and being bluntly honest. Is that when you have a calling in your life, or you have that type of prophecy that is, you know, that you have to take on, that responsibility, you sometimes people aren't going to like the things that you do. You know, you
oh,
have to walk in your truth and your honesty, and that's a hard thing to do, especially for humans, because we're not, you know, we're so complex, and we overthink, and we got this and doing this. And but at the simple form of it is there's a path, and you have to walk that path honestly. And so sometimes you're gonna knock heads, and some people are not gonna, they're not going to receive it or be as receptive. But at the end of the day, as long as you have done what you were called to do, that's the main purpose. You can hurt, you know, people get their feelings hurt along the way, but at the very end of the day, they'll be appreciative of what you've done because you've been honest. So I think for me, that was a big lesson, because I also have a challenge doing that, you know, which I think a lot of people do. But that just shows and proves that every time Miles had a new friend suggestion, it got easier and easier and easier for him. There was even points in the script where I would look at new friend suggestions and be like, look, I know this is gonna sound crazy, but this is the way it is. This is what's gonna happen. You're either gonna fall in line, or, you know, we're just gonna have to find a path. So so for me, once again a lesson in being honest.
And what do you think about the decision to return to your faith by the end of season 2, where he has that trajectory from being an atheist and then coming closer to his faith after Ali, you know, was
well,
going
did he
after.
though? I feel
Yeah.
like that was a little ambiguous.
It was
I don't mean to
ambiguous.
step on your toes, Brandon, but I really feel like that was that moment, right? Like, yeah, you did go to the church,
Mhm.
and you know, you were there and you were like, oh, maybe it was my answered prayers, or you know, but that's
Or
the
maybe it
thing,
was
right?
coincidence.
Right. Like he
Yeah.
had this moment, but does that moment mean that now you're a devout man of God? Like all of a
Right.
sudden now, like we don't know. That would
Mhm.
be something we could have seen in season 3, CBS. You made
Mhm.
a huge mistake. What were you thinking?
But I think yes, it was very ambiguous because we don't know. Like Miles, he says before he goes over to the church, he's like, "I'm still the atheist you all know and love." But then, you know, it's the what is that? The you know, who wrestled with the angel all night long? Who was the guy? Is it David, Joe, one of them? Who wrestled with the angel?
It might have been David. It might
David.
have been David. Don't
We'll
quote me.
go.
I'm still
We'll go
learning.
back
I'm
and look
still
it up.
training, Brandon. I'm still training.
I know one of the prophets wrestled with the angel,
Yes.
and I think that, you know, at the end of the day, that's the thing, right? The atheist finally comes face to face with God, and there has to be a resolution, right? What happens when you're down? You know, like when everything.
Jacob.
Jacob, there you go. What
Hmm.
happens when everything is taken away from you, and the only person you have to turn to is your belief, your faith? Like what Miles is, what what Arthur had said. I just have to pray. That's all I can do is pray. And so I also have a little bit of a challenge with that one too, because I wonder, right? If you're atheist but you still pray to God, are you? Does that make you a believer, or is that just what happens when you're in a time of need? You just
Yeah.
have to turn to what you know best. You have to go back to your roots.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes is by Regina Spektor in a song where she says, "No one's laughing at God in the hospital. No one's laughing at God in the war." Because people really do tend to rely on God during extenuating circumstances, or when they get older and they're closer to death and they start reflecting more on their life, even if they never believed in God before. So I think it's really interesting how we turn to religion during times of crisis, or how sometimes like it's that very crisis that makes us reject religion. Um,
Yeah.
like death, for instance.
Right.
Well, it really is a fascinating thing because at the end of the day, when it happens like that, are we using it just because we need that security blanket? Are we using it because, oh my God, I don't know the answers of the biggest question on this world, which is what happens when we die? Or am I using this because I need help? Like I just need complete help. I think there's a fine line between the two. And Myles in that way was in the moment of crisis. He had nowhere else to turn, and the only person he could turn to is God.
Yeah.
You know.
It's interesting because folks on the live chat are going up in arms, like, why would CBS cancel the one show that talks about God during a pandemic? Like this is such a show that people were turning to for hope, and so people are up in arms. The fans feel some type of way, okay? But the interesting thing is yes, this incredible show is here for people to binge, go back to season 1 and 2 and watch the show all over again. Let my actor friends get them residual checks, okay?
Hey,
So
back.
it's one of those things that, but you guys couldn't shoot season 3 until the quarantine is lifted anyway. So it would still have ended here and then later on figure it out. So I don't know. Hopefully another network will pick it up and you guys can keep going. We gonna pray about that.
Go ahead. That's what we can do.
Right? We can go ahead and pray. So question for you, Brandon, like a lot of times as an actor, people just assume that you're just like your character, especially folks who have been in the same role for a really long time. Like I can't even imagine that Ellen Pompeo, everyone thinks she's just Meredith Grey, right? Like it's like you get to this place. So how similar are you to this character? Because a lot of times you're nothing like your character. How are Myles and Brandon similar or different?
So similar. I've been lucky with Search Party, Mayor, and this to be able to play characters that are very close to me and at the same time very hard to crack into, because there's usually a side of me when I'm working on a script. I always try to find something that completely makes me uncomfortable, because like Daniel Day-Lewis had once said, when he works on a role, he tries to find the uncomfortable and make it as comfortable as possible. And that's when he knows he's like gotten himself into that role. So with Myles, it was the thing of, I grew up as a religious, spiritual person, and Myles had a complete turn of events. And I was always afraid to question my religion and my faith because of what we're taught. And Myles was already past that point. And so for me as an actor, it would be unhelpful if I tried to bring Myles to me. If I tried to make Myles come to me. Myles is like, no, I'm here and you have to face this question for yourself, And so that was a hard thing to face in the first season, which is my own beliefs and my own spirituality and what do I find to be true. And so that was kind of hard. But for Myles, like the things that we're similar about, we love helping people. I love being in the community. I'm very much about philanthropy and helping people out, being bold and honest as much as possible. I think Myles is a little bit more emotionally connected, especially in the last one, which was fun to ride into. I tend, which is funny enough, because acting, we have to always be emoting. I tend sometimes to hold mine, which is something that I'm working on. But to work with someone like Myles, who is very just like, he has to be a man of the people, was very liberating for me, because I found a different side of myself that I was able to tap into and I like. So that aspect was very similar to both of us. But the hardest thing was questioning my faith. That was the hardest thing.
And the only thing I knew that was similar is that Myles and Brandon both have a parent in ministry, because,
Yep.
you know, your mom's a minister. So I was like, oh, yeah, I was wondering how
Yeah.
this would affect you. So now that you have taken the ride of Myles, how has it helped enhance or questioned your faith?
Well, what it has done is it's made me look at the difference between spirituality and religion. It's made me very, very much take an account into that, and to understand that that spirituality is the core, is was supposed to be the core of religion.
Right.
It's supposed to be the basis, and is that sometimes as humans we do not follow suit to that. We lose ourselves within the glitz and glamour of it all, or the notoriety of it all, or making sure that we are the ones that are connected to God, which, I mean, who are we to say? You know, we're in the specs of things, not, you know? And so for me, finding the spiritual aspect, finding what connects us all through our different religions. How does Buddhism and Hinduism and Christianity and Quakers and Muslims, and how do we all connect? What is our fine lining? And so that was my opening for me. And it just helped me understand that I can't just take everything as truth. I can't just say this is it for me, because that's not the way my brain or my heart works. I have to look at everything and say, these are the things that everyone believes in. This is the core of it. And that's what I believe. Love, hope, and family. That is the core roots of it. And so that's why I found myself starting to meditate on that. Yeah. So that's where I'm at in my spiritual walk. But when it comes to religion for me now, it's not my forte.
Yeah.
Real tight.
I always say there's a difference between religion and relationship.
Big time.
And I think that, you know, unfortunately, like you said, it gets convoluted, and especially someone now who's pursuing it in a particular way. You know, I'm constantly being told, oh, you're religious, and I'm like, am I? Just because, you know, that comes with it. When you're devout and you really spend your time in it, people think that you must be religious, but there's such a negative connotation with the word, like as if you're very closed-minded and you're not open to all of what God is and all of what God does. But it's really about this personal relationship. I love that final scene, that it's really a shot of just you walking on the mountain. And why that is because I really believe that this walk with God is a walk that you do alone. Like it's just you and the Father, or you and whoever you pray to, right? And it's like, there you are on a journey alone. And sometimes there's the small voice that whispers, like this child, right? I really believe that childlike faith is so important to have. And the world perverts it for us. The world makes it very confusing to believe in. And so I that's what I saw in that last image. I saw that the journey is yours, and remember the child in you, and remember to hope and believe and love like a child, you know?
Yes.
So that was my message at the end for me. Mina, how did things look for you at the end?
I thought it was such a beautiful scene, but it felt oddly both out of place and also perfectly in place at the same time. I can't really explain it, like in terms of continuity. Like we always seen like New York, the metropolis, and we've never had a break from just New York. It's just been New York, New York, New York. And then out of nowhere, we just have Myles on the mountaintop. So my question for you, Brandon, is there any sort of like merit to the theory that could possibly have been Myles in a dream state?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think there's a world in which that definitely could be. I think that would also open up that would have opened up a dope like introduction into third season.
Yeah,
if it was a dream state, you know, waking up out of this, like, That would have been
Because
cool.
that does seem like that's your perfect world, right? You and Kara are back together. Jaya and Rakesh
Rakesh and
engaged.
Mary.
Like it was like, this seems
Yeah,
like
Allie's the
it.
preacher.
It's like
felt like
his
everything was just like so cookie cutter perfect in such a beautiful way, and I loved it because it warmed my heart. But when you were on the mountaintop and that the child monk was like, "Come here, Myles, she's waiting," I'm like, I feel like he's like either in heaven or a dream state or this isn't real. And I was so frustrated because it obviously cuts at that. And obviously people right now are crazy in the chat and they're like going back and forth about what network God Friended Me would be best on if another network would pick it up. And people are just saying, oh, maybe Fox would be good. And I know like in the past, a lot of these shows have gone to Netflix that have been canceled on network TV. They just go to a streaming service like Netflix or Hulu. Where do you think a show like God Friended Me could potentially live in the future were there to be a season 3?
I would love for it to live on HBO. I feel like I feel like being on HBO would give us a little bit more freedom to be a little bit more New York raw, like a little bit more edgier. And I love that, Netflix, absolutely.
That
Netflix
could take a very dark turn on HBO.
Yeah, for sure.
It could take a very,
I mean,
very dark
did you
turn.
watch Game of Thrones?
I think Empire has been like
What if I
saving.
told you that I have never seen an episode of Game of Thrones? What if I also told you that I am actually watching Harry Potter for the first time?
Oh my God.
You know what, Brandon? I'm gonna give you
I can't wait till you get to Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire because that is
I'm going through one all the way through. I'm having a Harry Potter marathon.
We're gonna give you a free get out of jail card because you've been busy since you graduated.
I have never had this much downtime.
Right, you've been super busy. You've been booked and busy. So we're just gonna take it as you're always working. So I mean,
I miss that lap though. I miss the Game of Thrones laps. I know.
It's okay. It's okay. You got some time, so maybe you'll get on that after you're done with Harry Potter.
Yeah, well, that's an hour an episode for what, 7 seasons?
Yeah,
7 or 8. I'll count the Starbucks coffee cups. I'll see how many coffee cups I find.
That's true. Yeah, that was a meme. That was a situation. But I do want to say thank you so much for coming and listen. Brandon's on East Coast time, so he is a trooper with us. I'm so grateful that we finally got to have this chat. Let people know how they can stay on course with your journey, how they can follow you. In such an uncertain time, what do you feel is next for Brandon? I feel like during quarantine, there's been a lot of self-reflecting. So what have you learned that you want? What does your purpose look like now moving forward?
My purpose is to continue to tell impactful stories like this and what I've been able to be on the trajectory of doing. Especially as an African-American in the industry, I'm very cautious of the type of roles that I take, and I'm very cautious of the type of image that I put out. And so for me, the next step, being out of school, I've only been out for 5 years. So it's been a blessing of the things that I've been able to do. But I know from working on these different sets, I want to create. Like I'm at a place where I'm ready to create my own work. I'm ready to put my people to work. I'm ready to like give opportunities to the stories in which I've been formulating in my head. So that will be the next step for me.
Are you quarantine writing?
Absolutely, every day.
Yes. Okay.
Different every day.
Are you sending me a script? I want to read one.
I'll send you through.
Okay. All right.
Treatments.
Yes. Listen, that's fine. I sent you one.
So
listen, you got to read mine too. So listen, that's what it's all about. It's about creating our own stuff. I'm really excited.
Creating our own opportunities.
Let the people know how they can follow you, what you're on, so they can follow your journey so we can see what's next for Brandon.
For sure. You guys can follow me on Facebook, Brandon Micheal Hall, I believe is my Facebook account. Yep, Brandon Micheal Hall is my Facebook account. Twitter, my Twitter is down because it was hacked. I
was gonna tag you. I was like, what happened?
It's so funny because like I was never a Twitter person. I'm not the type of person to just like pop my thoughts into my phone. But then when it got hacked, I was like, oh, guess someone wants to know what's going on. So I'm working for them to get that fixed. But mainly Instagram, you guys can find me at Brandon Micheal, Micheal Hall. And that's my gram. It's usually a blue dot. It's color schemes.
Yes.
Awesome.
And Mina, let the people know how they can follow you now that we've come to our end as well.
I know this is a little sad, but like I said, the show could get picked up on Netflix. It's happened with All American and other shows. So let's pray for that. No pun intended on that. Yeah, you guys can follow me on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter at Mina Makes Magic.
TikTok.
Yes, Mina Makes Magic. And as you know, your favorite Afro Latina, you can follow me at all the things at Selly Hangout. Again, it has been such a pleasure to hang out with all of you out there who love us so much, Ivan and everyone on the chat, for being such good, faithful stewards over the God Friend and Me Love fan base over here. And again, we thank the Myles Finer, Brandon Micheal Hall, for being on with us tonight. And we love you all until we meet again. Have a wonderful and blessed evening.
Thank you guys for watching the show, and also thank you guys for being so dedicated to doing this after every episode. It means so much, and it's meant so much. And so that's why I wanted to take an opportunity to finally come on and just sit down and talk with you guys. So thank you for always doing this, and thank you guys for watching out there. Much appreciated. New things to come.
Thanks so much, Brandon. We wish you the best of luck with everything that you pursue next.
So
Yes.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.